Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something pretty big, a bold new political vision coming out of South Africa. We're talking about the Congress of the Movement for Africa, or the CMA. They've just laid out this really detailed blueprint for what they're calling a total rebirth of the nation.
So, this is really the core question we're digging into. Look, South Africa has been in transition for decades, but it's still facing some seriously deep challenges, right? Well, this document from the CMA doesn't just talk about the problems. It actually lays out a very specific and pretty ambitious answer. It's their proposed path forward.
All right, so where does the CMA even start? Well, they kick things off by saying the nation is standing at a major crossroads. And I think this is interesting. They don't just jump right into solutions. Nope. First, they lay out a very clear diagnosis of what they see as the root problems, the things really holding the country back. And their diagnosis is, well, pretty direct. There's no beating around the bush. They're pointing to this persistent, really deep-seated inequality and an economy that they say needs a complete and total overhaul. But it's not just about policy. They're also calling for a whole new kind of leadership, one that's guided by, and this is their phrase, scientific vision and a strong ethical compass. This really sets the stage for everything that follows. Okay, so that's the diagnosis. The big question is, what's the cure? How do they plan to tackle all this? Well, the very first pillar of their plan is something they call proactive social justice. And let me tell you, this isn't about just patching things up with temporary fixes. They're talking about fundamentally rebuilding the very foundations of society. So what does proactive social justice actually mean? The CMA is super clear on this. For them, it's a framework that totally moves beyond what they call paternalistic rhetoric. Just talk. This is a huge shift. They're emphasizing action over words. The goal is to actively and very deliberately build a society where things like equality, dignity, and inclusion aren't just nice ideas or aspirations. They're the actual bedrock. They break this down into 3 key steps. Step 1, it all starts with education. They want to rebuild the whole system with a major focus on STEM, science and tech, to get young people ready for a digital future. Then, step 2 is what they call institutional dignity. This means guaranteeing essentials like healthcare and housing as fundamental rights, not privileges. And finally, step 3, radical inclusion. This is all about bringing rural and, let's be honest, often overlooked communities right into the heart of the national conversation. All right, that's pillar 1. Now for pillar 2, and this is just as big, a radical economic transformation. See, for the CMA, you can't have social justice without economic change. They argue for an economy that's not only sustainable for the planet, but also sovereign, one that secures the nation's independence for the long haul. And check out this quote from their vision statement. It's so powerful and completely unambiguous. They're making a clean, definitive break with the past. They're literally declaring that an economy based just on extracting resources is completely finished. It's just not viable for South Africa's future. I mean, that is a bold statement. It signals a complete and total paradigm shift. So if the old model is out, what's in? Well, they lay out 3 key things. First up, green industrialization. The idea is to turn South Africa into a major hub for manufacturing renewable energy tech. Second, a huge focus on technology, but with a twist, empowering young people not just to find jobs, but to actually create them. And third, making climate resilience a core part of the economic engine itself. But the CMA's vision doesn't just stop at South Africa's borders. Not at all. They see a really direct link between fixing things at home, this national renewal, and the country's role across the entire African continent. Basically, in their view, a stronger, revitalized South Africa has a genuine responsibility to step up and lead. And this, right here, is the central metaphor for their whole foreign policy idea. Think of it like this. A prosperous, stable, and just South Africa can act like a locomotive, a powerful engine pulling the entire continent forward. It's a really powerful vision of a shared destiny, of mutual growth for everyone. Okay, so how would they actually do that? Well, their plan involves strengthening trade between African nations, not just with the outside world. Also, leading by example with really transparent and effective governance. And finally, actively getting out there and championing the cause of African unity. It's a vision that's really about building partnerships, not just trying to dominate the conversation. So as we get to the end of their document, it all wraps up with this really powerful call to action. And they frame this whole vision not just as, another political platform for an election. They see it as a huge, long-term project of national construction, something that needs every single citizen to get involved. And this is the closing line. It just perfectly captures that inspirational, really ambitious tone of the whole thing.
The message is crystal clear, right? The future isn't something that just happens to you. It's something that you have to actively and bravely design for yourself.
So, when you step back and look at the whole thing, this document is way more than just a political manifesto. It really is a comprehensive blueprint for a total societal transformation. And that leaves us with a pretty big final thought to chew on. Looking beyond just South Africa, how might these kinds of ambitious, detailed national visions actually start to shape the future of an entire continent?